By 25, she owned 5 rental properties. Most people her age were still splitting rent with roommates and arguing over whose turn it was to buy dish soap. But by 30, Naseema McElroy had lost nearly everything. And the villain of that story wasn't laziness or bad luck. It was a 3-word phrase that Wall Street dressed up in a suit and called an opportunity: subprime mortgage lending. Here's what was happening under the surface. In the mid-2000s, banks were handing out high-interest loans to buyers who couldn't realistically sustain them, packaging that risk like a gift and calling it innovation. Naseema wasn't reckless, she was ambitious, and the system handed her a ladder that was quietly on fire. When 2008 hit, it didn't tap people on the shoulder, it kicked the door in. Property values collapsed, tenants stopped paying, and those high-interest loans that seemed manageable in a rising market became anchors the moment the tide went out. 5 properties sounds like an empire, until you realize 5 leveraged properties in a crash is 5 simultaneous emergencies with 5 different zip codes. She didn't just lose income, she lost equity, credit, and years of work, nearly all at once. And here's the irony nobody puts in the real estate seminar brochure. The thing that was supposed to set her free became the thing that trapped her. Passive income is one of the most successful marketing slogans in personal finance history, right up there with low monthly payments. Because being a landlord is a job. It's just a job that doesn't pay you overtime and occasionally calls you at 2 in the morning about a broken water heater, tenant disputes, property taxes, insurance hikes, maintenance backlogs. These aren't footnotes. They're the whole chapter. Now here's where the story gets interesting. Because Naseema didn't disappear after the crash. She rebuilt, slowly, deliberately, and this time through a completely different vehicle. She shifted her focus to consistent, long-term investing in broad-based index funds. And by 44, she had crossed into millionaire territory, not through a single big bet, but through the boring, unglamorous discipline of staying in the market. History is full of these cycles: the roaring markets, the over-leveraged optimism, the correction that feels like the end of the world, and then quietly, the recovery that rewards whoever stayed rational. The 1980s, savings and loan crisis, the dot-com bubble bursting in 2000, 2008, the details change, but the architecture of the disaster is almost always the same. Too much borrowed money chasing too much optimism. One of the most common misconceptions is that real estate is inherently safer than the stock market because you can see and touch the asset, but you can also see and touch a car that's been in a flood, and that doesn't make it a good investment. Concentration risk is concentration risk, whether it's pixels on a screen or bricks on a lot. Financial experts have consistently pointed to something called the financial order of operations. Max out your tax-advantaged retirement accounts first, build your personal financial foundation, and only then consider using additional capital for higher risk, higher complexity investments like rental properties. Naseema learned this the hard way, so you don't have to learn it the same way. The practical lesson here isn't never buy real estate. It's don't borrow yourself to the edge of a cliff and call it a strategy. Position size, diversification, and debt management aren't just investment concepts. They're the difference between a setback and a collapse. What separates Naseema's second act from her first isn't intelligence. She clearly had that from the beginning. It's process. Unemotional, consistent, sized appropriately process, which is the least exciting sentence in finance and also the most important one. At the end of the day, building wealth isn't about the one move that changes everything. It's about not making the move that destroys everything and then patiently letting time and compounding do the heavy lifting. Discipline, sizing, and consistency aren't the flashy parts of the story, but they're always the parts that are still standing at the end. Naseema's story isn't a cautionary tale about ambition. It's a masterclass in recalibration, and the fact that she rebuilt from near zero to 7 figures is proof that the game isn't over after a loss. It's just restructured. Whether your recovery takes 2 years or 20, the principles that get you there are the same ones that should have been there from the start. If you're ready to start your own journey, whether that's real estate investing, finding the right contractors, or connecting with lenders who actually make sense for your situation, check out our links in the description below.